2009. And if you ask me why, it was not an overnight decision. This was something that we have thought about for about 35 odd years.
Oh, wow.
And but it was such a major decision to do, as you will hear further on in the evening. But so this is how long we've been in Ashburton, and that's about what I'll want to share at this point.
Thank you, Elna. So why were you particularly drawn to Ashburton?
To Ashburton, so, you know, when you immigrate to a new country, you know, the one town or the one city is as good as any other. And so my husband got a job in Ashburton, and this is where we ended up. And we've been here since.
Great, since 2009, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone been here for longer or arrived earlier than 2009? No, so there's our answer to Lydia's question in the chat of who's been here the longest. Must be Elna. Lydia, let's go to you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up in Mid Canterbury?
Hi, my name is Lydia Michaela-Maidadicki. I'm originally from Maryland in the United States of America. Maryland is right next to Washington, D.C., which is south significantly of New York City, in case anyone is not sure what U.S. geography is like. I moved to Christchurch in 2017 for a master's program at the University of Canterbury, and met my husband, and then we got married, and so now I live in Ashburton. So I moved here in February 2017 and then moved to Ashburton in December of 2017. So I'm still pretty new.
Yeah, you are. Great, thank you. And your husband is new to New Zealand, or did he grow up here?
So he grew up, he's from the Cook Islands originally, but was raised in Australia in Sydney, and then moved to New Zealand in 2013. And he moved to Ashburton pretty shortly after coming to New Zealand.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Lydia.
Yeah.
Fred, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up here in Mid Canterbury?
I'm coming to now.
Oh, it's a bit hard to hear you, Fred. Is it possible to go closer?
Yes, I can.
That's better.
So I come in New Zealand my first time in 2015 with my working holiday visa. So when I come in New Zealand, I just start in Christchurch, and I just drive straight down to Ashburton, where I found my first job. So after this, I traveling around New Zealand, and my boss offered me a job in Ashburton, so that's why I was staying in Ashburton. And 2 years ago, I met Freya. So
did you meet Freya? Did you meet Freya in Ashburton?
Yes, in Ashburton. So that's when I decided staying in New Zealand for longer.
Yeah. Was it easier once you had a partner rather than when you were alone? Did that make it easier?
Yes, was definitely easier because I was feeling lonely before. I was pretty busy at work, so but all the time I've got some free time or something, you're just feeling too lonely.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what work were you doing, or what are you doing, Frederick?
So I'm working for a contractor doing the potato season.
Okay. And when you met Freya, was she here on a working holiday visa also, or was she permanently living here?
She's got the residency, so she was permanently here.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And you've decided to stay. That's nice. And Freya's from Germany, is that right?
Yes, she's from Germany.
Okay, cool. So we've got some international couples. Excellent. Thanks, Fred. Ramandeep, tell us about you and how you ended up here.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. Actually, I'm basically from India, from the Sikh community, and it's the northern part of the India. It's the main city name is Delhi, New Delhi. And how I came here in New Zealand is like I just came to join my husband after marriage in 2015, and like he's a dairy farmer from approximate 9 years. He's in the same profession, same field. So wherever he chooses his job, I have to go with him. So it's like not a compulsion that I have to go, but obviously I'm his wife, so I have to accompany him. And like initially when I came here in 2015, we was in the North Island in the Topo, and I was not having like much options to go out of the house. And like in back in India, when my family asked me how's the country, I was just having a simple one word to tell them, that it is a beautiful and peaceful country. That's it. And later on, he sent me back to India to complete my studies, as I was in between. I was doing LLB from India, and just because of having a baby, as I conceived one like initially like first baby, so my studies got struck in between. So I planned like I don't want to leave my studies in between. I have want to complete. So I went back to India, and then I came back after 8 months. And then he was already shifted to the North Island in the same like Hamilton. Then then my opinion about this country got changed, because I got some shops outside my house, and there was a swimming centers and some pharmacies and doctors clinics. So, everything was nearby. My opinion like totally got changed, and I started looking out for some work, but unfortunately I didn't got any job. But then he helped me out. My husband helped me just to get some work on the farm itself. So I did some milkings, and it was pretty good time for me, but it was hard also, because at that time, like already having a one girl, she was 1.5 years old, and I conceived second time after coming back from India. So my thoughts already got changed, but I wasn't too much stress also, because I was not having my community people in my circle at that time. But then like later on, after giving birth to the second girl, he said like, I'm getting a job in the South Island, so what's your opinion on this now? So I said like, I'm totally like reliable on you only. Wherever you go, I have to accompany you. So then we shifted to North South Island here in Ashburton 2 years ago, and this place had changed my life completely.
Oh, how is
Completely.
that?
It's like it started with the Plunket actually. The Plunket who used to visit my place and look after the kids. Like she used to measure the and everything, like what they did, sort of things. And she suggested me that why don't you go out of the house, and it will give you a big relief. Why don't you meet some new people and make some friends? I said, no, I can't do this. I don't know anyone here, I'm all new. So then I came to know about the Mid Canterbury, this thing, like the Plunket first, and the second thing, she introduced me to the rural driving scheme, where I met a lady, Wendy Hewitt. She's a coordinator. That lady, like the way she has like explained me the things, she gave me a reason to like think something different for the life. That was amazing. The words she used to like give me the confidence. She introduced me to the amazing mentor actually.
Who was
she,
your
she, she
mentor
was
for
like,
driving?
she was Freya. She was from Germany.
Oh,
And
that's Fred's partner.
yeah, that's Fred's partner. As
Yeah.
Fred is on the call, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So like that lady given me a new life, I can say, like seriously, the way she taught me the driving and all, it was not a chapter of like 1 month or 2 months of learning the driving. She allowed me enough time. That is like in 1 year span, like I learned the driving completely. And then I started like giving me myself a chance to go out of the house and then meeting new people. Then I started working as a Facebook volunteer, where I'm like with the Plunket line now. So I'm handling all the events like I used to post on the Facebook. So that gives me more confidence. Yes, this is the good place to live on. And
Ramandeep,
then
I'll just pause you there for one moment. It's very interesting. Welcome, Andy, to the call. Can you hear us okay, Andy?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Great. We're just doing a round of introductions and a bit about how we ended up here, and Ramandeep's telling us a bit more about her story once she got to Mid Canterbury. So we'll just carry on, Ramandeep. I did want to know, and I think that our listeners might be intrigued, what is it that Wendy said to you, or how did she give you this confidence to get out and meet people? So obviously you got the driving skills from the rural driver course, but what was it that she said or did that changed your life, as you said?
Yeah, exactly. The thing is like the kind of words she had used. She said like your life is not ended up here. Like it's not like that you are zero. If you are zero in the driving, so your life is like zero. Because she asked me what exactly your professional background and your like what have you studied before and so on. So that was just a kind of inspiration. That was a big inspiration, I can say. Like that was really amazing. So I started believing, actually after that lady, that I started believing that yes, I can talk to some other persons also and make some new friends and then easily like believe on them. Otherwise coming from like another country, it was hard to believe and hard to talk to some other people also. I mean, like we
What
Indians,
made it
like,
what
we
made
have
it hard for you? Was it a language barrier, or what was it that was hard for you?
no doubt that yes, the language barrier also, because English is not my first language, and secondly the proficiency, like the fluency, the people like you white people speak in English, it's like amazing. And we Indians sometimes try to copy the accent, but we can't really. And but still I tried my best to learn English and improve my English while like making the friends like you here. And it was a good
Your
journey.
English
Like
is
now
excellent, Ramandeep. Your
oh,
English is
thank you.
excellent.
Thanks. So like finally now I got my driving license. And as you have just asked me in the email as well, like what was the funny event it happened, it's all in the same journey. Like the day when I got the learner's license, I was so confident. And when I asked my husband to go out of the like to just go in the supermarket store, and I made a mistake that very day, and I got a ticket of $150, and
Oh
I
no!
shared with
On
and
the
I
first day of your license?
yes, on the first day of the learner's license, just completed the learners. And Freya at that time was the second lady who said like, it's completely all right if you got the ticket, hardly matters, don't worry at all. So those words like boost my more confidence. Oh, it's okay, she said, like it's all right. Otherwise it was a like too much burden on me, like getting a ticket, and my husband was with me. It was like, oh, what he gonna say now? It was horrible. But fortunately like it all went all right then. And then I prepared myself for the restricted license, and then finally got the like the full driver license now. And
Congratulations.
thank you so much. But unfortunately, like the day when I got the driver's license, full, and since then it's COVID-19. Just because of this, the it's all shut down. And
Right.
but
Thank you
it
very
was
much. Let's move on to Mercedes. Can you introduce yourself, Mercedes, and tell us a little bit about how you ended up here?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mercedes, and I come from Guatemala. That's in Central America, below Mexico. And I met my husband, Thomas, back in Guatemala in 2013. And no, sorry, 2011, I think. And then we got married in 2013. And we decided to move to Nicaragua because he wanted to open a business there. The business didn't go that well, and we decided to move to New Zealand. And I didn't get to choose as Ashburton, but Thomas had no doubt that he wanted to come back to Ashburton because he's a local.
Great. Thank you, Mercedes. And did he find work here easy enough?
Yes, Thomas he's been pretty lucky. The company where he has worked for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, always kept his place, his spot for him, because he used to come and go just to make money, save some, and then go back overseas.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we'll hear more about your story and how it was for you to move here shortly. Let's move to Andy. And just by the way, Andy, we do have a number of people on the call who have turned off their video, and there is a setting where you can hide them. I'm not sure if you know about that, but so we're just looking at the panelists. But anyway, welcome. Tell us a bit about you.
Oh, yeah. Well, myself and my wife, Tony, came over from the UK. How long is it now? Are we getting on for 3 years or 4 years? Frankly, I've stopped counting. So it was somewhere that we had a couple of neighbors that we were very close to that moved over to Wellington some years before and said, you guys have got to come and see this country. So we came over and toured around, and time passed, and we came back and we holidayed, and more time passed, and we started thinking about, maybe this is something that we could do. Get too old to enjoy it and contribute to the economy and all of that. So we made another trip, and we were umming and ahhing about it, and got to the point where saying, right, are we ready to press the button on this thing? And the very morning that we had that conversation, the Brexit vote came through, and we just thought, right. So we were all set up to get over here. It was pretty tricky to do from my point of view, because I came over on the skilled migrant route, and I was the principal applicant. So I had to sit an equivalency exam, which is basically taking my knowledge, which had atrophied a little bit over the 3 decades that I'd been in practice. I'd got very good at very specific things, but not so good at being a jack of all trades as you're expected to be when you enter the profession. So I had to go back and study and take an equivalency exam that basically put me back to the same level as someone who has just finished a degree. So trauma. So I had to leave a music festival that we were at and drive across the country to sit this computerized exam, and then wait 10 agonizing days before I found out that I'd passed. And we were all set up to come over. But I do feel that we were kind of, I'm a pharmacist, Lydia, sorry. I'm a community pharmacist. I feel kind of a bit of a fraud because I'm from the UK, and the move to New Zealand is very easy. It's all kind of done for you. Even as regards my qualifications, it couldn't possibly have been any easier for me to do. And I've got to say, it was still bloody difficult. And I take my hat off to anybody else from any other country, any other background that's managed to do the same thing, because it's not generally an easy thing to do. But even so, we were struck by cultural differences that we didn't see coming up, by little language not difficulties, that we didn't see coming up and still don't see coming up. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that I say wrong that still make my colleagues laugh after all these years. It's most unkind. But whenever we first came over here, the Newcomers network put us in touch with our initial group of contacts, and that was absolutely invaluable. And then it didn't take us long to sort of slide into the Timebank, and that's kind of formed the backbone of most of our friend groups now. And it was after a couple of years, I was confident enough to start a society of my that we had back in the UK and play role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, all that kind of stuff. And there was nothing here in Ashburton. And I thought, I bet if I just announce that I'm going to start this, people will come out of the woodwork. And sure enough, they did. So that's kind of the other half of my social group has come from that.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Lydia, if I can go to you as someone else from an English-speaking background, where perhaps you might not think the differences are too great between moving from the US to New Zealand. Have you encountered, what's been hard for you, or how's the experience been for you to move here?
Well, I have to be really honest. So I've lived in 2 other countries previously. I lived in Jordan. I lived in Amman, Jordan, which is an Arabic-speaking country. I lived in Taiwan, which is a Mandarin-speaking country, and I learned to speak both of those languages. I have to say, coming to an English-speaking country was just way easier. Like, just, I don't know, set the bar. It was just a lot easier, first of all. But like Andy, I did come across some words. I think one of the most unusual ones was heat pump. Like in America, we mostly have central air. And so you just, I don't know, turn on your heater and it pumps all through the house. And so becoming familiar with the heat pump was different. And then realizing that a new world and a countdown was actually a place where you got food rather than, you know, like a song from a Disney movie or something like that. So, yeah, I think probably though, I mean, there's those, and then my husband, yeah, just because he's from the Cook Islands and Australia, there's just funny things that he says, and sometimes I have to ask him to translate, or I have to sort of guess and say, is this what you mean? And yeah.
And what's been the hardest thing for you, or perhaps what do you miss, if you don't mind sharing about that?
My husband and I were talking about this, and for me, the biggest thing that I miss is just my family. All of my family is back in the U.S., and I'm guessing that most, if not all, of the other expats, I guess is what we would call them in the U.S., but all of the other people who are from another country that have moved to New Zealand also probably quite miss their families. I don't know. Thankfully, New Zealand has lots of food, and you know, like lots of variety of food. So it's not like I can say that there's a particular, you know, dish or something that I can't get here. Though I think Mexican food, we could use more, or like South American food. Maybe Mercedes can teach me how to cook some good things. But yeah, I think there's definitely a shortage of good Mexican food in Ashburn particularly. But yeah, no, that's all, Kate.
Great, thank you. And Elna, if I can ask you, what do you see as the advantage of moving here? You said you considered it for about 30 years before you moved here, and now that you're here, what's the advantage for you of living here?
Oh, I think the advantage to live in New Zealand is, you know, it is a beautiful country, and it is so much safer than in South Africa, for instance. And yeah, so I think this is just I think this is the closest to heaven you can get.
Well, that's great that you're so positive about living here. And how did you find it when you first moved to Ashburton, in terms of getting to know people or feeling at home here? What were some of the things that were maybe difficult or that helped you to feel at home?
Yes, so the first thing that is difficult, that is still after 11 years, it's still very hard for me to get used to the cold weather. So I'm usually frozen, and then my friends are, you know, with short sleeves, and I'm dressed, you know, warmly. So and for instance, we don't even put summer sheets on the bed. So the coolest we can have is the flannel, and then in the winter time we use the polar sheets. That's even warmer. So the weather is still, and the very short summer, you know, that we don't really have a long summer, and so I find that very hard. But then it's nice to have fresh air, you know. We always say it's the little ice bears. We can feel the ice bears. And but anyway, but this is nothing to complain about. This is just to put your log burner on in the home, you know, make your home nice and cozy and warm. But yeah, so I'm just more used to sunshine and nice warm weather. And
it sounds like there are a few others on the call who feel the same way. Probably not Andy, but I can see the others were all nodding that they also miss the warm weather.
Yes.
Sorry, the hardest thing?
Yes. Yeah, and also the hardest thing is to be so far away from the family. I think this is the hardest thing for all the immigrants. This is, you know, you can get used to anything else, but you know, if you're away from your family, that is very, very hard.
And what's helped you to feel at home here when you're away from your family and your connections? How did you manage to make a home here or meet people?
Yes, being a Christian, obviously, I met a lot of nice people in church, and so you adapt. A new family, you adapt. You get yourself a new grandmother and a new mother and a new children and new grandchildren. And what's also made it easy for me is my job. So I've got a really nice job that I enjoy, and then I work with people I support. So that makes the my heart's desire to have my own children to care for. I can now care for somebody else, which make it easy for me. And then they so to do nice things with and so on. And obviously the time bank is a very, very good tool to meet people and to do things, and the Newcomers network also, and I find Ashburton is really, really friendly. This is one thing that when we arrived, and even when you go to the shops, and the cashier is so friendly, and everybody, the one of the characteristics of the New Zealanders are they are friendly, and they are conversational, and they are easy and informal and easy to mix with. And the people, I was really felt very welcome. I've never had anybody nasty with to me, or hard to approach. So I really, it was I can't complain about New Zealand people. I do line dancing, so I met a lot of people with the line dancing, and I love swimming. I love the pool. So then the only thing when I go to the pool to see the people with the grandmothers with their grandchildren, and then I miss my grandchildren. But I must say now, when we thought of immigrating like 35 years ago, it was much more difficult than now, because with the technology, it make it easy to speak to your children and to see them through the Skype or the FaceTime or whatever. And it's so much easier to fly. It's we had a family reunion plan. We were supposed to go next week for a month, so unfortunately we had to cancel that. And but anyway, so hopefully we'll be able to do that another time. So we just have to focus on the positive and be thankful that we're not contracted the COVID-19. So we are too happy, so there's always something to be thankful for.
Thank you, Elna. That's great. Now, I'm pleased that you've had such a positive experience, and that you think New Zealanders are very friendly. I know that's not the case for everybody. That's not necessarily the experience of everyone, but I'm pleased that in your case that's that's happened. Mercedes, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience coming here, and what's been hard, and what's helped you settle in, and things like that?
Every time I hear someone like Elna, I know she's lovely, but every time I hear someone like Elna sharing about how New Zealanders treated her so well and were so friendly from the beginning, makes me wonder if I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Because I experienced a completely different New Zealand to the one you experienced. And I got sent back home several times with the famous phrase of go back to wherever you came from.
Oh no.
Several times. And I remember feeling like I was in the wrong place. I didn't like Ashburton at all. And I didn't find people very, very friendly. I would try to be always, keeping myself positive and keeping a smile on my face as much as I could. And I didn't find people that friendly, really.
No.
It was very, very hard for me at the beginning. I think it also didn't help that I come from a very warm place, but where people are warm as well. So I could feel the difference a lot. And I think the place where I was working didn't help me either. I was surrounded by negative people. So yeah.
You needed to have met someone like Elna from the beginning.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Mercedes, what has, from my understanding, you are happier now to be in Ashburton?
Yes, definitely.
What's helped you move from that not friendly, not welcome place to feeling at home, or a little bit more at home here?
Well, I got surrounded by more positive people. I changed jobs, which helped me a lot. And then I started meeting people through the Newcomers network. That was pretty much the start of everything. And then I got to the Timebank, where I met a lot of characters that I always say that characters that this town has to offer, because like you said, Elna, I know Mary, sorry.
Yeah.
I met people that I had made my family, like my version of, not my mom, but I would say my auntie, for example. Yeah, just friends. And then I have kind of reinvented myself. I got to meet myself here in New Zealand through the Timebank. I found new passions and things that I am interested in that I didn't really know, and I got to see things that I could learn from people from the community, and that's really fascinating. And like coming from a completely different culture, like in Latin America to New Zealand, it's just like a shock, because we don't really have veggie gardens, for example, and I didn't know what being a gardener was, because I in Guatemala, you chuck the seeds in the ground and they just grow. You don't look after things like that because of the weather. And yeah, I found that that I'm passionate about growing my own food, and through the Timebank, we started a communal garden between a group of I think it is 8 people now. So it's really nice. I love it.
Thank you, Mercedes, and I'm really pleased that you found the Newcomers Network, and that helped you on your journey, and also found the Timebank, and have been able to contribute your skills and learn from others. We've really appreciated having you involved. Lydia had a question for those of you who've mentioned the Newcomers Network, how you found it, like how you heard about the Newcomers Network when you came to town. So Andy's responded, finding it on Facebook. And what about you, Mercedes? How did you hear about it?
I can't remember how I heard about it, but I was friends with Sophie Claire, that she used to be the coordinator, yes, before Addie, and I met her like a year before she got the position, and that's how I got to the Newcomers Network.
Okay, right. Lydia, had you heard of it before? Have you heard of it, or?
I mean, I've heard of it before today, but I certainly was not introduced to it when I got to Ashburton. And so listening to a few people sort of mention the help that they receive from the Newcomer Network, I was just thinking what pathways people, I don't know, are made aware of when they move into the area, I guess, that the Newcomer Network exists. So that's all. Yep.
Yes, well, it's really important. It's an important question, because if we want to make newcomers feel welcome, and we've got this wonderful network that can help them, and also the Timebank, how do they hear about these things? So that's important to consider. Fred, perhaps we'll turn to you. What has helped you feel at home in New Zealand, if anything, if you do feel at home?
really helped me. It's my partner now. So, because before I was just working, and back home for summer in France.
Uh-huh.
But the very good thing in New Zealand, it's better weather than my place in France, because it's all the time gray and not much sun and everything. That's pretty good. Pretty good New Zealand.
Great. So the weather is actually better here than where you're from.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely better.
Well, that's good. Now, Fred, just thinking, because you've had the experience of being here, moving here by yourself, unlike the other panelists who've moved here with a partner, do you have any recommendation? Oh, sorry, Lydia came here too to study, but then met a partner shortly after, it must have been. But Fred, what do you have any tips maybe for those of us who are living here, if we meet people, single people who are here working on the farms or working in other things, and ways we could help make them feel more at home, apart from introducing them to some people that could potentially be their partners? But what can we do? I mean, that worked for you, that you met someone, but what could we do to help people, you know, feel at home, those who are perhaps here by themselves?
Just maybe I think the main thing is just get talking with the people, try understand where they're from and everything, and just make the people confident in the country as well. It's very important, I think, because if you're not feeling at home, it's getting pretty hard.
Yeah. Sorry, your sound cut off a little bit. If you're not feeling at home, what did you say? Sorry?
If you're not feeling at home, it's just harder.
Harder, yeah. And it can take some time to feel at home, like Mercedes experienced, I guess, some time before you really feel at home here. Ramandeep, do you feel at home here in Ashburton?
Yes, now at least finally I'm happy to say, like, yes, I got some people here who are just like as my family. Seriously, like, I'm happy now.
Great, that's good to hear, and we did hear a bit from you at the beginning, so that's great. Lydia's said in the chat that for people that come on their own, we could invite them to dinner or invite them to do things with your family, and that, I think that's great advice, because that will help them feel part of something if you invite them to your house or invite them for a drive or whatever you're up to with your family. So thanks, Lydia. Andy, any suggestions from you as to perhaps what you've experienced in terms of like, how can we make newcomers feel welcome is sort of my question, and perhaps something that's helped you feel welcome, or something you think people could have done that would have helped you.
Well, sure. I've been a bit of a migrant all my life. I was born in Northern Ireland and moved over to central England, and then from there to the West Country, and from there to the Isle of Man. And all of these jumps were not far, but they involved the same process of sort of rebuilding your life and making new social networks. So I'd had a little bit of practice on that. So I researched Ashburton fairly thoroughly before I came over here, so I'd found the Newcomers network before I'd even come over, and had a think about some things that I would want to join in with. But it's quite true. If you become aware that somebody is new, just invite them out to something, and don't just interact with them yourself. Introduce them to your friends, introduce them to your family, because it's the more people they come into contact with, the more chance that they're going to click with someone, and that's what they'll need to make a lifelong friendship that will help them feel tied to the area.
Great. And it sounds like a few people have got hobbies as well, where they've met people, like the line dancing, or you've got your role playing, and sorry?
Just do stuff.
Yeah.
I can remember back when I made my first big jump, which was pretty scary because I was 18 years old when I did it, moving on my own from Northern Ireland into England. Somebody gave me a piece of advice, which was just join everything. Even if you only do it once, it'll be an experience under your belt and a new group of people that you come into contact with. And so, yeah, I joined 10 societies over there. and eventually ended up keeping up with 3 of them. But even the stuff like I did, like potholing, going down in caves and crawling on my belly through all these half-flooded tunnels underground, I would never do it again. But it was a real experience, and one of the people that I met doing that, I stayed in contact with, and I'm still in contact with now, 30 years later.
Great. Yes, I also had someone say to me once, just say yes. You know,
Yep.
like just say yes, give it a go. Like, why not? You know, so that's interesting. So we have 10 minutes left on the call. And for those who are listening in, hopefully you're finding this interesting. If you have any questions for any of our panelists or for in general a question, please feel free to type it now. We have 10 minutes left with these people, so so, you know, if you've got anything that you want to know, please feel free to put it in the chat. And if you don't have the ability to chat, or you haven't figured out how to do that, perhaps just unmute yourself and ask your question out loud. So Mari's just posted something in the chat there for those who haven't seen it as well, that after they'd been here for about 8 years, that her mum still didn't fit in, and because she didn't have any hobbies, so it was just the children that she interacted with. Unless we get another question, Lydia and also Ramandeep, you've had your children here in New Zealand, I take it, or you have young children. How has that been for you? I can appreciate you will really miss your families when you have kids, but have there been ways to kind of feel more at home through your children? Like, have you got involved in anything, or what's the experience been for you?
Well, on my part is like whenever I go out with my kids, and it's hardly a day like when people had not had commented me, like they said like, oh, the sweet daughters and all, and those lovely comments, which obviously boosted my confidence as well, that yes, I'm doing the nurturing well I'm looking after my kids well. So just that gives me a single reason to start like working as a home-based educator. I thought like, why shouldn't I look after the other kids as well, so that I would be getting a good exposure and will be getting some good experience as well. So that was a single, just like getting the comments from the people which appreciated me just like that. So gave me a reason to start working as a home-based educator.
That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Ramandeep. Can I ask you, and perhaps Mercedes also, because you look like you are not born in New Zealand, do you find it, is it a nice thing if people ask you about, hey, where are you from? Or do you find that, no, how do you find that experience? Would you like people to ask you, or would you rather that they just accept you for who you are without them?
I love answering this question actually. Like many of the people before you as well, like they had asked us like from where you are and what exactly the community is, and what's something like those questions. So I know it is a bit kind of personal questions, but really a good ones. And
you don't mind people asking you where you're from, and
no, because this actually gave us an idea, like when we share our thoughts with other person, like from where we are and what, so this way we'll be able to know like what's different than them, like what are other cultures and what other communities are. Because before that I was not aware of the Maori culture. I was not knowing that Kiwis, like the white people, are of many types or something like that. So I just simply was knowing that we people from India are the Indians, like the North Indians and the South Indians, and the people who are living in the abroad are the like the English people, white people. That's it. But after coming to New Zealand, I learned more like about the cultures and things.
Thank you, Ramandeep. And Mercedes, what about you, in terms of people asking where you're from or questions like that?
I love it, Kate. I love it when I get back to them and I said, I'll buy you a coffee if you guess where I'm from. It is very unlikely that they will say Guatemala. So I have been, from India, Samoa, all over the place. because they have no idea where I'm from. I love it. And I love sharing where I'm from because it is an opportunity to tell a little bit about you. So yeah, I think it is good.
Great. And we've had a question from one of our panelists, one of our listeners. How important is it to you to keep your own cultural identity and practices when you now live in New Zealand? Anyone would like to speak to that?
I'll just say something really quick, Kate. Because neither myself nor my husband are actually from New Zealand, at least I am constantly having this discussion in my head at the very least about what cultural traditions to hold on to and to try and pass on to our children, or what do I sort of think of as American, or what does my husband think of kind of as Australian or Cook Island that he wants to pass on to the children. And so I think it's a mix of things that we do. Like, we know that our children will probably end up with a New Zealand accent and will, culturally be very Kiwi. They'll think Kiwi humor is funny, and they'll know about sort of Kiwi cultural icons and things like that. But we will still also try to pass on those other, like, cultural identity, like the other cultural heritage that they come from, if that makes sense.
So something like, and I don't know enough about American culture, but I guess most of us know that you practice Thanksgiving. That's something that we don't do in New Zealand. That's a typical thing you would do. So something like that you would continue to do in your family? Yeah,
definitely. Like Thanksgiving, 4th of July, fireworks. Maybe not fireworks on the 4th of July, but, hot dogs. Yeah.
Thanks, Lydia. Thanks for sharing that. Did you have anything else to say about the kids thing, or about having kids here, or how that experience has been?
No, I actually didn't have anything about kids. So having kids in New Zealand is wonderful. And if anyone hasn't had kids yet, I highly recommend doing it in New Zealand because it's much better than many other countries. I did just have one thing that I wanted to say, since we're getting close to the end, about like ways that we can make newcomers feel more welcome. And this is kind of an indirect thing. Not necessarily when we're interacting with someone that we know is new. Obviously, we want to be friendly and welcoming and say, where are you from, and talk to them and invite them out to do things. But when we are talking to other like Native New Zealanders, or particularly Native Ashburtonians, a lot of them have, from my experience, or from what I've heard, have sometimes struggled with the fact that there are a lot of newcomers from different places, and it's a big change from a very homogenous kind of rural community to a more diverse community. And so one thing that I would just say is, if you hear someone making a negative comment about someone from, about groups of people or an individual that looks like they maybe are not originally from New Zealand, I would just encourage you to tactfully, not speak out, but just sort of tactfully maybe offer a different opinion. I think Mercedes' experience is not uncommon for many people. And I just think we have an opportunity to try and influence the people that we interact with, particularly if we look white. That's the most blunt, sorry, like I feel like that's just a super blunt way of putting it, but we just have a real opportunity to try and impact the way that some people see things. And I think that that's an opportunity for us to just, share love and encouragement and open-mindedness.
Thank you, Lydia. And I guess that's important when we consider that, well, we already have many migrants living here, but also we will be receiving refugees in our community in the future, and there has been some negativity expressed about that. So I think it's a good reminder for us to use our influence where we can for the good. And I'm sure glad to have met all of you guys who are on the panel tonight, and really thrilled that you've made your home here and joined the Timebank. So I've got to know you, and you make our community richer and a wonderful place. And if you weren't all here, it would be really boring. So, you know, thanks for coming, and I hope that, you know, that you do feel more and more at home here in Mid Canterbury. It is 1 minute to 8, so we are rounding out our panel. Those of you who've had your video off, feel free to turn it on if you like, to just join us to say a quick goodbye. And thank you from Kathy in the chat. Thank you to all for sharing your experiences. Did anyone have one last piece of advice or anything like that for how we can support newcomers? Anything sort of a burning need that that you wanted to you know, a burning something you wanted to say before we close off?
Well, I can say just like thanks to everyone, the people like you I found here on the Timebank and the Newcomers Network and many more platforms. So it's really amazing. Loving the life now.
Thank you, Ramandeep. And listening in on the call is actually not Wendy, sorry, not Adi, who runs the Newcomers Network, or Wendy, who you mentioned from Rural Driver Licensing Program, but their boss is on the call. Kevin, there he is, from Safer Ashburton, or Safer Mid Canterbury. They're one of the organisations that umbrella those networks. So I'm sure he's been encouraged to hear from you and others about how those networks have been effective and helpful. Great. Anyone else got any questions, or we say thanks for tonight?
Just one little question, like, do we have some more platforms like this, like already aware of the rural driving scheme, done the license from there, already tagged, and the Newcomers Network, I done the Toastmasters, and the Timebank, I'm already with you guys, and any more platforms you can suggest me?
Anyone? I guess it depends on your interests. There are sports groups and church groups and, you know, cultural groups perhaps, but anyone else got anything that springs to mind?
Because I only use the Facebook thing, like to like search for these kinds of platforms. So
did you mention welcoming communities, Ramandeep? I can't remember. Welcoming communities through the council?
Welcoming communities, yeah. Is it like, I think it's suggested by the ADI, if I'm not wrong.
Janice at the council, is that right, Kate? Have I got that right?
Yes, although that is more focused on us locals becoming more of a welcoming community rather than serving newcomers as such.
Right.
That's what Adi is working on with the Newcomers Network, or Hakatiri Multicultural Society, I think it's called, Council, Multicultural Council, it's now called. Ramandeep, are you involved in the Indian Society? Kevin's put a comment in the chat that there is some Indian...
Might be, I'm not aware of. Is there any page on Facebook where I can join them or something like that?
Do you know, Kevin, if there's something on Facebook that she can join, or how Ramandeep would find out about it?
Well, I know, you know, Bikash from the shop on East Street.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the chairperson of the Indian Society, so...
All right, yep.
We'll get back to them. Thank you.
So if you popped into his shop and asked him or his wife, they'd know.
Okay.
What shop is that? What shop is that, Kevin?
Oh, you know, the little grocery shop, I forget what it's called, opposite Outdoor Adventure Sport.
Oh, yes, beside CoinSave.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I guess, like Andy suggested earlier, just finding, you know, having a go at some different things, maybe trying some different hobbies or groups, or seeing if it's for you. And if it isn't, don't worry, you don't have to stick at it forever. You know, give it a try and then decide what's right or not.
A lot of those groups do post on likes of the notice boards on Facebook, don't they? Ashburton Notice Board and that kind of thing.
Yeah, most of them don't have web presences of their own. You find them sideways, or a peculiar thing about Kiwi culture is that you're just kind of expected to know things. They don't post that information out for you to find. You have to ask someone, and someone will tell you. So it makes it a little harder to break in.
Can I ask, did any of you receive the welcoming pack? I know Adi makes up some welcoming packs with brochures about different groups and things like that. Did anyone receive one of those?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. So I will maybe find out about if he's still doing those, and because that's one way. Like I know the Timebank's got our flyer in there, and maybe other groups could put their flyers in there, and then a few things that you could potentially join if you're interested. Yeah. Okay, team. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's 8:05, so we'll call it a night. And thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. Thank